Hey guys, welcome back to the channel here. I spent the past couple days building this engine stand. This is Adam Paganelli's design. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But he posted a video on this engine stand. Today I'm going to be starting tearing into this YZ426 motor, part of the 426 build, if you guys watch my other video or two on it. But this is a pretty cool stand. It took me a couple days to build and paint and everything, just get it good and refined. And if I were to do it again, there'd be a couple things I would change, but it works well from what I've seen. I haven't put the motor on it yet, but you got a little position selector over here so you can spin it around, and there's all these 8 holes, and you can stick this little peg into the different holes. I put a T-handle on it, and then you got some threaded rods that go in the motor mount bolts, or where the motor mount bolts would be, and rotates good. It's all welded. Some of the welds are better than others. I did it MIG. I would have liked to do TIG, but I don't have a TIG. And the MIG I was using was kind of crapping out at points. It wasn't my MIG, and it was just acting up. So this is probably like the best weld out of all of them right here. But it'll work. It doesn't need to be super strong, just strong enough to hold a 50-pound motor, and that's what this stuff should do. So I guess I gotta try and get this beefy motor onto this, so I'll show you guys that next, and then later in this project I'll give an update on how this stand is working for me. But so far seems pretty cool, looks good, and hopefully it performs good. So let's get this motor onto it. Alright, let's see if I can get this thing on here. Should have it set right about there. Try and get the front one on first. Like that. That is a lot of weight on those rods. Let me put a nut on this back one and a washer. That was the main problem I had with the CR bike build, is I didn't have an engine stand, and the motor was just tearing up the bench, tearing up this plastic I have down, which is nice because you can just wipe it off real quick when it gets oily or coolant or whatever fluid, fork oil, shock oil, all the above. So yeah, you can see, looks like it's sagged down this rod just a little bit, and I need to tighten this back a little bit, but it's on there and it looks pretty stable. I think I'll tighten this down a little bit more if I get a chance. Let me see if it'll go on. Oh yeah. And now, if I want to change the position of the motor, I can just pull this pin and I can change whatever I want. So that's a cool little stand. So far, so good. Hopefully it doesn't break. It's got a lot of weight on it right now, and I need to get this oil line tied up so it stops dripping, but it should do the job. So let's get into the engine teardown here. I think it's about time we start ripping this motor apart. So I'm gonna start off by getting this coolant Y off of here. I already got it started. It's got some nice corrosion on it. It's part of the coolant, so nothing I wouldn't expect. I'm okay with taking this off because I got a new water pump cover. You'll see later, but this Y needed to come off anyways. I got my bolt cups. It's always good to have cups, label them, and then you know where your bolts need to go. So in this video, I'm gonna basically be doing the head, getting the head, cylinder, piston, I don't know, the piston might not come off, but all that stuff off, and the clutch case stuff, so water pump, oil, filter, maybe the clutch itself, depends on where I end up. I'll take off our intake flange. Probably need a new one of these. You can see it's getting cracked out right there and just all around. None of this stuff has been apart that I'm taking apart right now. It never needed to be, you know, which is pretty crazy as well. And it just goes to show how much technology has changed with the remote oil tank being the frame on this bike, where the new bikes, there's an oil reservoir. A lot of stuff has changed since 2002, but this stuff still works, which is what matters. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And it's starting to get broke, so it needed to be fixed. So I'm gonna rotate our engine so you guys can see the head. There's some coolant. That's why this bench is nice, because it doesn't go through. I need a paper towel though. I'm experimenting with a lab mic that I have, so I have it clipped onto me. So while I get it figured out, it might not be perfect audio, but I'll get it figured out. I've had it for a while, but I was running with it just on the camera, not actually on me. But it should be a little bit better with it on me. So when I'm walking around, it should be more consistent. So I think this is a 5mm Allen to get the valve cover off. Back in the day of the old 5 valve. Take our bolts out, and these seals can come out sometimes. This valve cover has been off plenty of times for shimming purposes as this stuff wears down. And the thing that they didn't do, unfortunately, in 2002 is the newer bikes have a baffle here, so not as much oil comes out, but they didn't have it here, so a bunch of oil tends to come out. And we might be able to get an 05 or an 03 through 05 450 valve cover, but I'm not sure if that'll fit. I'll have to do some searching around. If it fits, that'll be cool, but probably not. But I'll probably take off the cams now. This is the hot cam that we put in. Here's the big beefy kicker. So let me try and spin it over here. Okay, I think that is top dead center right there. Now I'm gonna take off the cam chain tensioner. This has been off a bit too. The gasket is worn out. There's the cam chain tensioner. Now the cam chain is all loose. I'm gonna loosen off all of the cam cap bolts. Kind of go in like a X pattern for this, just like if you're torquing down lug nuts. You don't want this stuff to warp. Exhaust side is easier. There's only 4 bolts instead of 6. Because of the 5 valve, there's 6 bolts on the intake and 3 lobes. Need a paper towel dispenser. I'm gonna take this guy off. A little bit windy outside today. I have the blind closed because better lighting. Lighting's always a struggle. I'll probably get a real video light soon, maybe. And I was looking for a hot cam intake cam as well, but they were out of stock the last time I looked, just to match with the exhaust. They're supposed to make power in sets, you know, different travel compared to the stock. And the reason we got the exhaust is for the automatic decompression. That's what this little tab over here is. It opens up one of the exhaust valves so you can kick past compression. If you've ever tried to start one of these old YZs, they're super hard to start. That's why we got the auto decompression. And the newer bikes had it. I think it started in 03. They started putting them on bikes. Because my 250F has it. And I think I might do a kind of rebuild on the 250F. I wanted to put an electric start on, which could be fun. Get the WR electric start and whole electrical system, battery and headlight, and that could be cool. Make a fun long-range off-road bike. Get the desert tank on it too. So now these cams should come out. I've been doing the intake first. It doesn't matter, we don't have to mark them right now. If I was just doing a valve service, I would mark them to make sure I get them lined up again. But for a complete motor teardown, it doesn't matter. Put them back in the caps and the exhaust should be easier with the intake out. And we can just drop that down there. If you're just doing the top end, you might want to hold that up a little bit more, but again, full engine rebuild, just go for it. This is my first 4-stroke engine rebuild, so it's gonna be interesting. I've done a couple CR250s, a CR125, and a top end on a KX. So it should be a good learning experience. And before I get the valve caps and buckets and shims off, I'm gonna make a little paper towel with writing on it. I'll probably just use this one, the other side of it, and mark the 3 intake and the 2 exhaust so I know that I put them in the right spot. Something like that. Intake and exhaust, the 3 buckets, and then the 3 shims, same, and top. And I'm gonna need a magnet to get these out, so let me go find a magnet real quick. Make sure my magnet's clean and just rip them out, and usually the shim stays in there. I'll set them down upside down so the shim, it's like a cup, and the shim stays in there. And I'll take the shims out in a minute. A little bit of oil in these couple, and you can see the spark plug down there, probably not on the camera, but. And this one looks like I'm gonna have to rip out the old manual decompression to get it out. I'll have to look for a plug for this too, because I don't really need it. Plug for the shaft, that is. And there goes the oil. Get that guy through the seal. It always makes a mess, and that is something that you can count on when doing a motor, when tearing it down, that is. And now I should be able to get the second exhaust out. And now we're pretty much down to ripping out these head bolts. There's 2 here, 2 in the cylinder that are all oily and 2 nuts on the other side, and they are pretty big. I'll start with the nuts because they're 10 mil and they're not tightened as much, and one of them has a holder for the clutch cable. Track that guy loose, never been off, so factory Loctite or whatever they put on these is still gonna be on there. And these other ones should be 14 mil. Yep, these guys are tight. I'll have to find another 14 and I'll crack these loose and I'll get back to you. You never know what you're gonna find when you open up an engine for the first time. And this is gonna be the first time this engine has ever been opened up. So I'm gonna take off all the outer bolts and nuts first. Ooh. That tells me a little bit right there. These bolts must be in the coolant passage because they should not look like that. It's a little weird that only this one has it, but so now this head should come off. It's coming. Work this head gasket down. So right there you can see the compression chamber of the 5 valves, 2 exhaust, 3 intake, and the intakes are beat down. That's why we're in here. It's got a bunch of compression, but I mean really for the service it's put in, not too bad. And there's the piston. It's pretty close to top dead center. Not perfect, but this has got its wear too. Let me rip off our head gasket. And this is the 450 diameter. The only thing they changed when they went to 450 cc's is they stroked them, so longer stroke. And we only have 1 bolt. You guys probably can't see it, but there's an 8 mil. That's the only thing holding this cylinder on. There's the last bolt. And that's really the only thing that stops you from getting the cylinder off once you get the head off. And let's see if this will come off with a little bit of persuasion. It's moving. Just want to do this carefully, don't want to jack anything up. Okay, wow, that's pretty cool. So you can see the cylinder here, and you can see, looks like this area right here that's black is area that the piston doesn't cover, and right here you can see this area, it looks like the skirt goes right there, and it's really not too bad. There's some scoring here, but I can still see a little bit of cross hatching on that, and some scoring right here. I don't have a bore gauge. I might get one just to see how this thing's doing, but really just get a light hone on that. New OEM piston and rings, and you can see this piston really isn't too scratched up too. This is the skirt that probably gets like the most wear. A couple scratches, you know, but not bad. Doesn't look like there's much of any pitting at all from detonation, and you can just tell this is a well cared for bike. There's not many bikes that can go this long. And you can see the crank connecting rod, that all looks good. And let me flip this stand around for you. One of the best parts about these OEM pistons is that they're held in by circlips. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a circlip here. So it's super easy to take that off. It's just a circlip instead of non-expandable circlips. These have a nice hole for it. But yeah, it looks really good in here. Nothing's rusted. And it's in really good condition. So now I guess I'll start ripping into this clutch side here, and that'll probably be it for this video. We'll see how it looks in here and see what we need to do, but looks like we're not gonna need to get this cylinder sent out. We can just hone it right here. This motor's already a bit lighter, and now we can work on this clutch side here. So I'm gonna just loosen up some of these bolts, kind of go in a same sort of like lug nut pattern to keep everything even. Don't want warpage. Loosen all the accessories first, and then I can go for everything else. And I think that's everything, and with any luck it should be loosened up. Yep, it's moving. Okay guys, I got it coming out. Turns out I missed a bolt right here. So you can see behind here would be the oil pump and the water pump right there. And it looks like it goes in just directly into the counterbalance shaft with a slot. It's pretty much the same as an old two-stroke, but there's just more, basically. But you still got your clutch, water pump obviously. The gear shifting is still the same, kickstart's still the same, idler gear still the same. The main difference is the counterbalance right here, and whatever this is down here. I don't know what this is. I guess I'll find out. So I guess next I'll probably get this whole clutch pack out of here. I don't think this has ever been serviced too, which is pretty amazing for an OEM clutch to still be going. Nothing like the old days. New 450s wouldn't even be close to this many hours probably. You never know, it all depends on how hard you ride it, but still. Should have got my drill out for this. This always takes forever. And I'll probably just get this out today. I'll see, but the clutch might be the end of this video. Depends on how long it gets, but the top end stuff, taking all that out, takes a little bit. And I'll probably take this clutch out and wrap it in some paper towels and put it to the back of the bench. This rebuild should be pretty quick. All I really need to do is I might polish up some of the shifting stuff and vapor blast the cases. We'll see how bad the crank is, but I think it's fine. There's no up and down play in that, and a little bit of side to side. Might be worth it to get the crank sent in and rebuilt, but we'll see. Here's the clutch pressure plate, and yeah, that clutch is worn down a little bit, but not super bad. Doesn't seem to be notched out. It's worn down a little bit, but there's definitely way worse stuff out there, and it's pretty much the same as the two-stroke with this bearing here and the rod that goes through. At this point, most everything you're gonna encounter is pretty much the same as two-stroke. I wish they'd figure out a better way for this crush tab setup so you don't have to wreck your nut to get it off. There probably is a better way. There's probably a tool for it. They tell you to replace these things every time anyway. Probably because they get wrecked when you take them off. Who would have known? And that's why I usually don't crush them on so hard, so I don't have to wreck them so hard to get them off. Alright guys, so I got some clutch plates out here. And the old big 1 3/16 happens to fit on this. It's probably some weird oddball metric size. I only have up to 24 in sockets and 25 in wrenches. And this thing is pretty tight. And there we go. Just a little bit of squeezing and it comes off up here. And then I'm gonna put the clutch plates back on and the steels. Tusk clutch and flywheel holder. It works out pretty good. It's basically just a big vice grip. Let's see if I can make this work out. It's usually a miracle if you can do this, if you can get them all to go in at the same time. I've only done it once. That must have been my lucky day. And here's the last steel. As you can see, still pretty clean. These are definitely worn down, but they still got some miles in them. Pretty amazing for OEM. I'll probably get some new OEM just to finish this build off, just because they last for so long. So now I might have to get this off. Feels like there's something else, so unfortunately I gotta take all this back off. Nope, there wasn't. Okay, well, it's all off anyway. Looks like there's a bronze type of bushing in there. That is, it looks fine. It's probably something that can be replaced though. And you can see some heavy duty springs back here for those hole shots. And it's all back together. Flat washer on that too. Pressure plate. I'll get all these started if I can. Keep everything together. Don't need to be in all the way. And I'll look into getting the 250 springs possibly for the YZ426F, because these things are monsters. That's another thing these old Yamahas from this era are known for, is their monster clutch pulls. But that's probably it for this video. I got the clutch out. That's kind of what I wanted to do. I'll get that pin out later. And I got the clutch pack here. There's the motor again. I'll do the flywheel stuff, I might do that next, but all this fun stuff is for the next video. This has got to be the oil pump here. And yeah, that's about it. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a great rest of your day.